Everybody, we have a quorum. Everybody's here. Could we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we have a new,
Madam Chair,
yes?
one item on the agenda, I have some minor corrections to the board minutes for the regular meeting of June 28th.
Okay. So we can remove that from the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have our new student member. Naomi, you want to come up? Microphone here. So you're going to repeat after me. Okay. So I, Naomi Orcas, wait. Oh. I'll do like a phrase and then you do it, okay? All right. I, Naomi Orcas Flores, do solemnly swear
I, Naomi Bojorquez Flores, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution and the laws of the state of New Mexico,
and the Constitution and the laws of the state of New Mexico,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of member,
discharge the duties of the office of member,
Santa Fe Community College Board, Santa Fe, New Mexico,
Santa Fe Community College Board, Santa Fe, New Mexico,
which I am about to enter according to the law and to the best of my ability.
which I am about to enter according to the law and to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Oh, students with you. Okay, so you sign this and then come and join us at the.
Thank you.
I can read that one better than I can read mine.
Yay.
So right here. Do you want to take a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself?
And turn your microphone on in case it's not. The little switch is at the bottom there.
There we go. Can you hear me? Yeah? Great. Well, I have been at the community college for a few years already. I am working towards my nursing degree. I will be applying in the spring, hopefully to start in the fall. I work out in the community. I was a student ambassador, which I had to step away in order for me to be in the position that I am today. Also, I am a peer mentor at the first year advising. My goal in this position would be to build community here at the community college. So I would like to see more students at our SGA meetings and being more part of our community college events that we have here. So that is my goal from here on. And thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Also, my executive team. I said it right. Thank you.
Do you have any family or anything in the audience?
No.
All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
All right. President's report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we'd like to recognize the employees of the month for 2 months, since we did not have a meeting in July. For June, the Pass It Forward award goes to Carmen Valadez with the TRIO program. Ms. Carmen here?
Carmen was not able to be here, but she said, I was honored to receive this award. I've been at the college 1 year, and it was an honor to be recognized by someone who felt I'd added something to their day. She wanted me to know how much she appreciated my kindness, friendly smile, and the fact that I always go out of my way to say hello.
Great, thank you. So congratulations to Carmen. And the Wellgram for June goes to Colette Lee, who retired at the end of July. So I don't think she's probably here, but we will thank Colette.
She's not here, but Kathy Romero is here. Kathy, do you want to talk about why you nominated Colette?
Yes, I've worked with Colette for all the years I've been here, and, you know, from, there's kind of talking about Fiesta floats, and, you know, our office has so much community involvement, her working in marketing, what's going to do with Fall Fest, with Halloween, everything, and just, she just made herself part of our office and was always available, and very appreciative of that.
Great. So congratulations to both of the winners for the month of June. For the month of July, the Pass It Forward award goes to Joanne Romero from Human Resources.
And Joanne was not able to be here. She said, I want to thank Carmen Valdez for selecting me for the Pass It Forward Award. I was surprised and extremely honored to have received this award. It means a lot to me to know that my work is appreciated and acknowledged. It's a pleasure to work in an environment with great staff. Thank you.
Great. And the Wildgram for July goes to Brendan Romero.
Brendan didn't send me a statement.
So let's congratulate the all 4 winners for both June and July. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd just like to highlight a few things in my President's written report. We recently were awarded 2 fairly sizable grants. One was from the Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration to put together a building energy automation and microgrid training center. We're really excited about that one. That's $351,800. And we also received an award from the EPA to do job training in environmental technologies, and that was $200,000. And that's an award that we received several years ago, and we were pleased to receive it once again. I'd also like to point out that 35 faculty and staff attended a workshop to adapt their teaching and communication styles to foster better learning for deaf and hard of hearing students. It was called Deaf Tech. It's a National Science Foundation funded Center of Excellence. I'm not going to go through everything in here. We had 11 students receive their pins for dental assisting and dental health in July, and 24 nursing students were pinned earlier this month in a graduation ceremony. And most of those students were from the ITT program that closed down. And so it was a great event to see those students completing their degree. In news, I'd just like to announce that Kathleen Senna has joined us as registrar. As you know, Barbara Tucci retired after many years. Kathleen is a graduate of Santa Fe High School and UNM, and she's been involved in student services for 30 years at UNM and most recently at Northern New Mexico College. Senior Counselor Janelle Johnson attended the American Counseling Association Institute for Leadership Training in Washington, D.C., and what's not in my written report is that she was elected to be on their national board. So she will be serving on their board. I believe it's for a 3-year term, if I'm correct. And recently, Dental Department Director Amna Nayar contributed a section on American Indians and dental history to the Modern Dental Assisting textbook.
Wow.
And then we had our convocation, was it just last week? It seems like it's longer ago than that way. But the focus was celebrating student success. And one of the things we did celebrate was the fact that we not only met our 20% graduation rate by 2020, but we actually exceeded it. Our graduation rate for this past year was 22%. And what's also not in there is we awarded over 1,000 associate degrees and certificates in this past year, and that's another record for us, so we're really pleased with that. That's it for my written report, and I'd like to ask Ms. Peters and Mr. Lovato and Mr. Mraz, are you coming up too for the enrollment report?
And I believe Mr. Lovato has a new job.
And Mr. Lovato has a new title. He is the Executive Director of Marketing and Public Relations. He got to drop the interim title.
Chair Siegel, board members, President Grissom, we're happy to be here to give you the enrollment report. We're doing something a little bit different. If you see, there's a few PowerPoint slides that Todd has prepared for us to look at. And so what you see here is a comparison of fall 2016 and fall 2017. And the exciting thing that you see here is that we are up in terms of new students. We are down in terms of returning students and continuing students, but we wonder if the fact that we've had such a high number of graduates this last year hasn't impacted that. I also want to call your attention to the fact that we have about 800 students who are registered currently in dual credit classes on our campus, but we have 42 dual credit classes off the campus that are at our partner schools that do not have registrations completed yet. And that's 42, whereas a year ago in the fall 2016, we only had 22 on those campuses. There are 213 late starting classes. 80 of those start after the 8-week mark. Just to give you an idea of the possibilities as we move forward in terms of registration.
Just a question there.
Sure.
So that's like 600-ish students who didn't come back in the continuing,
So remind the definition, the difference between
Continuing.
returning and continuing.
what is
So
continuing?
returning is students that have laid out a semester and come back. Continuing is students who've continued. There's been no break.
From spring.
And so we lost 600?
Not necessarily. We may have graduated a number of
Okay,
those, those students, and so they aren't back
Okay.
because they graduated, which is a
Okay.
happy thing. So this just reiterates, we saw a record number of graduates, and this could partially explain the drop in continuing and returning students. But again, the new student count is up. And then, of course, the financial situation in the state has impacted enrollments across the state as well, as you well know. Todd, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom. I'm going to go back to this slide here. Of course, we know that there's a net decline in enrollment that was projected, but I want to take a minute to just point out a few things, efforts that we've undertaken to counter the trends that community colleges have been seeing statewide and nationally with these declining enrollments. And so we coming up with kind of a consensus building process, meaning input from various people around the campus. We came up with a campaign that highlights 3 areas. We wanted to highlight the fact that, there's transfer, advance, and that save money. And a part of that is that we're proud of our class size ratios. Through our research in collaboration with OPI, institutional research, we've gathered that students can save a significant sum by attending the community college before going to a 4-year university. And so we wanted to get that out in front of people. That's something that we haven't really done aggressively historically at the college. And we also, as you'll see, the data was really fun process in terms of compiling these numbers, building with input. And so you'll see just through these slides a few examples of this. Trying to incorporate some data visualization into our graphics, so just those dollar bills. You'd be surprised how much deliberation goes into just kind of making dollar bills reflect accurately data information. Skeomorphism is what I learned the term is. And so there's another one, there's your advance. And so we're trying to just get across some of the key points of the college. This is just one campaign. We can kind of revisit these and see what's effective. And we've also, we're going to show off Marcos here for a minute. If Mason, if you want to go ahead and hit play.
Did you know that you can save thousands in tuition by earning an associate degree at Santa Fe Community College, then transferring to a state university? That's like money in the bank. Money that you can put towards, say, a new fuel-efficient commuter car, a fast new laptop to help you write papers, or a nutritious meal plan to boost brain power while you cram for tests. Save money at SFCC. Then take your credits and lottery scholarship with you. But hurry, fall classes begin August 21st. Education pays at SFCC.
Thank you, Marcos. That was beautiful.
Very nicely done.
What I'd like to emphasize here is that we go to, we'll go to conferences, the marketing, or we'll kind of participate in webinars, and in the community college sphere, there's so many different things that you can pull from. So before we take too much credit for that spot, that was that won gold for another college, I think, in Texas. I just basically kind of pulled some of the copy and repurposed it, right? So, but we will submit it for an award next year, so we can. We'll skip this one, but this is just another example. And before we go into this, I just wonder if we could play a few videos that we've had produced, and then we can give you some context for these.
Watch out for the sparks. We need welders, and I'd like to start a welding custom fabrication business. I've learned how to stick weld, I've learned how to TIG weld, and oxyacetylene weld. Great machines, great instructors. All this is so affordable. The class sizes are much smaller than a big university, and the teachers are hands-on. And now they're letting me do an art show here with the processes I've learned. I do bobcats, I do bears. Hearts are my favorite though. I'm in there and I enjoy it every day. I just love coming to class.
If you could spare 60 more seconds, we can watch the other two.
My
Okay.
associates in respiratory care. I want to work in the ICU. My experience over here at Santa Fe Community College has been wonderful. When you need help with something, they're there to help you. They have tutoring, they have computer labs. My class is 8, so it's small.
We have everything we need, like the mannequin. I'm getting good education. There's a great instructor. There's everything I can get hands-on before you go to the clinicals or before you start anything in real life. This college is great.
So where are these playing?
I'll share that. One more.
Okay.
My ambition is I would really like to write and film an independent comedy. I had heard in the community about SFCC, and it's just been incredible how affordable it is. And we have access to dollies, booms, top-end cameras. Teachers are extremely available. They just have a passion, I think, for independent filmmaking. And when they sense that someone is serious, there's no limit. People care about why they're here, and it kind of shines through in every aspect of the culture here.
So would you mind repeating your question, Madam Chair?
Where are these showing?
Okay, great question. These were actually produced for a web format. So we've rolled these out a week at a time on YouTube and Facebook and on the digital screens. But it hasn't been passive at all. We've put some sponsored posts behind these. And so what that means is that we've geo-targeted these to reach people in Santa Fe who are particularly only have either some education completed or don't have an education, higher education background, but are between the ages of 16 and 65, I think in this case. So this is and so for each video up to this point, we've garnered about 10,000 views on each, which puts us into a competitive area with which would be competitive with a TV buy. We've done this on a budget of about $300. And so, but I do want to also emphasize that we have been talking with Comcast, who the big new development is that Comcast can now offer geo-targeting themselves. So it used to be too expensive for our little community to do that because we have to pay Albuquerque rates. Now we're talking about trying to reach through more TV options as well.
And geo-targeting means?
It means that you're identifying where people are. All your phones will give you away your location. All your IP addresses on your computer tells companies where you are, and we can follow you around. With gusto. We do it all the time.
So I did see ads at Tecolote on their video screens, and there's other restaurants that have those too.
Correct. We're also part of the digital screens that are, the Tecolote one is you just can't help it. You just stare at it. You put a screen in front of people, but those are in 18 or 19 locations across the town. A lot of social media sharing. And so I think the themes of these, affordability, class size, quality, this has legs, so to speak. So I want to keep rolling this out beyond this semester and really kind of get the exposure I think the great graphics and the message deserves. So real quickly,
So how are we going to track their success?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. The next frontier for this college, which is critical, is the conversion rate of these efforts, right? So now we're getting into, I could give you a ton of analytics about, this ad was seen 10,000 times, or, this page was visited 800 times. The next step in our kind of quest for marketing sophistication is to really start utilizing the tools where we can measure the conversion rate. And there's another set of analytical tools that will allow us to do that, as well as just the classic survey of how did you hear about us? And we need to start compiling that data more, and that's something I look forward to doing.
So that's starting now, compiling that data.
It sure is. And so this is, and I'm segueing, I'm not pivoting.
You're not avoiding.
No, I'm not. This is, for the first time, we advertised in Pandora, which is a digital streaming service. Our ads for Higher Education Center and the college ran. And so you will get kind of nice reports out of these. Hey, Mason, would you? So for example, this is not Pandora, but this was another effort we did, an email blast. But a report might look something like this. Hey, on the this little logo on the top left, 176 people clicked on that. Then, all those different areas will get a little report, and we can say that. Well, back to your question, it doesn't quite answer, how we've done, but we have to start measuring this stuff sometime and somewhere, and we're beginning to start that process. Here's some Facebook ads from Facebook from May 1st to present. We've reached 109,000 people. For this, we spent $3,500, which is, and if you're familiar with prices in print advertising, that's a pretty good deal. We still do a lot of print. We love print. And like I said, you kind of got ahead of me we are developing conversion measurements. And then I want to pass it over to Marcos. I apologize for taking so much time, but it's so interesting to me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Todd. Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. President. So not only are we doing this exciting new wave of just more social media, more ads, and for less money, we still are keeping that old school, boots on the ground, face-to-face mentality as well. And we just want to give you just a little bit of an example of what that is. So again, as you know, we have tried from May to now new events, new partnerships. For example, the 9/11 Rumble. That was a partnership that we did with the Santa Fe Boys and Girls Club. So that was kind of like the official launching of our partnership with the Santa Fe Boys and Girls Club. All proceeds went to charity. It was a great event. Over 2,500 people went. It was a sold-out event. Our commercials were playing on those big screens consistently throughout the night. The ring announcer was talking about giving a 30-second ad about SFCC. Each person that got to go to that event received information about reminding folks to sign up for SFCC classes, and these are when the semesters begin. Also, you'll see here just some of the things that we did over the summer, how we spent our summer vacation at SFCC. We have the Santa Fe Fuego logo right there. Every single year we do the Santa Fe Community College Night at the Fuego. This year, Mr. Todd Lovato sang the national anthem and did a phenomenal job. Miss Rebecca Estrada over here threw out the first pitch. And we just had, again, the announcer reminding folks about registering for SFCC and for the HEC. Also, this is the first time that we're ever going to try this, and we are super excited, super pumped, and this is based on the partnerships that we've received through the Santa Fe Boys and Girls Club and Holmes Boxing. We were able to get a booth for Zozobra. We're going to be right there front and center at the main entrance. That's the only entrance coming in. That's the only exit coming out. 45,000 potential folks that we can talk to about SFCC and the possibilities. So we're really excited about that. And that's a $1,000 booth. We got it for free. We also have started our new open houses with Santa Fe High School Junior and Senior Days at SFCC, Capitol High School Junior and Senior Days at SFCC, Pecos High School, and so forth. And we're going to be doing that again this year. We saw a grand total of about 650 juniors and seniors from those combined high schools that got to talk to faculty, staff, and had the opportunity to tour our facilities this past year. So we're really proud of that, and we want that to grow. That was the very first time we ever tried anything like that. So just wanted to share with you, Madam Chair, and members of the board, Mr. President, some of the great, exciting things that we are doing, new things to continue to boost those numbers and continue to get our name out there in the community.
What's that end one? With the
Capital
cougar? Oh, that's Capital. Capital. Okay.
That's the Jaguar, Madam Chair.
Yeah. She's a graduate.
Yeah, okay.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, President, I just want to emphasize that this is the same thing. These efforts, we need to start being able to celebrate our successes and identify when our efforts are being effective. What is our ROI? What is the cost per mil on these efforts, right? And so we are doing a bit of structuring in our department, and we're trying to carve out time and resources to make so that these future reports can involve more of that kind of information.
Thank you. Right.
Madam Chair, a quick question. So of the students, the 600 students who came here for the first time for the junior senior days, do we have any idea what the conversion rate is on that? Since we kind of recruited those students in, do we know how many of those students actually came here as freshmen this year?
Madam Chair, Board Member Keith, thank you very much for that question. And I can absolutely run a report through our Office of Planning Institutional Effectiveness to figure that out, because what we did for a lot of them was the criteria was when they were coming here, they had to fill out a contact card, and then with that contact card, we then entered them into our banner recruitment system. So I could absolutely request that information and see who we got who signed up for our contact card for those events.
Good. Can we get that next board meeting? Okay.
I'll just follow up with that, please, Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom. An example of how we're addressing a question like that is that we were implementing a text message communications. Just we're piloting it in our department, because I know we could use text messaging in so many different ways campus-wide, but we're using it specifically to take that information, put it into a small little database, and then start a deliberate effort of consistent communication with those potential students. In other words, hey, you get a text a week later, thanks for signing up. Would you like to fill out this form? A week after that, we see you haven't done this after 2 weeks. Well, so you could, I'm just sharing that to kind of share how we have to build out these systems a little bit, and also the tools to do them. And once we do something like that, that will give us somewhat of a bit less anecdotal ability to report.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else?
So, Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question on the enrollment report? So
Yes.
right now we're down, our head count is down 323 students from this time last year. Do we anticipate making that up with our dual credit or late enrollment students?
Yes. The dual credit registrations will include at least 400 students, so at least 400 additional registrations. Then we have those late starting classes as well. And so there'll be, some students have registered for those already, but we still have a lot of folks who register closer to the time that they start.
Talk about the drop for non-payment and that.
We had a drop for non-payment last week on Tuesday evening. And that also, you know, if you look at the enrollment report before that drop, we were down 3.75, close to 4%. And so then we had that drop for non-payment. And students are still, you know, we see lines at the cashiers still coming back to pay and get back, make sure that they're in good standing in the class. Yeah.
Other comments, questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love those videos.
Now we have Deborah Bolt to do the foundation report.
Madam Chair, governing board members, President Grissom, and new SGA President Bojorquez Flores, I'm happy to be here this evening to present our 16-17 fiscal year report, and you should have a copy of it. The good news is that we ended the year at 1.6 million, and we had a very good year in the market, but that was an increase of 176,000 over the previous year. I want to point out before I go into the details of that, is that we have increased over the past 4 years, as long as President Grissom has been serving, from a high of, in 2012-13, of just over $250,000 to where we are now today. And the total over that period is in excess of 4 million, closer to 5. So that doesn't show in this report, but I just wanted to point that out, that we're really only as good as the college. And we've been very, very fortunate to have the partner in President Grissom that we've had that in fundraising. Our fundraising has increased, and there's a direct correlation because of the public's trust in President Grissom and his ability to serve this college as he has. So it's just a very important thing to remember. And I'm always pointing out that fundraising is a group sport, it's a team sport, and it's not based on any one individual. It's not me, it's not a board member, it's all of us together. And I'll go into a little more detail now about the revenue, but I just wanted to really emphasize that. We're only as good as the college, and we know we can always do better, so we're always trying to do that. Our endowment and investment earnings during this previous fiscal year was $762,000, almost $763,000. We did have a very good year in the market. And you can see in the chart below, Mason, if you want to just raise that up, you can see that's a pretty large portion of our budget. So we're trying to, of course, increase the other amounts of money. Program support, which is basically grants that we receive, was $674,231. These are all grants to support college programs and projects, and they're based on the priorities of the college that we receive from the president and this board. And we currently have now under development about requests for about $2 million in proposals, and you know we're looking for opportunities every day to increase that program support. The operating support, which is our unrestricted, was $144,779. Those are funds that we use for matching purposes, for when student clubs raise money and we can match that. For projects that pay for professional development for staff and faculty. And those are the hardest funds to raise. They really are. And you can see they're a small portion of that pie chart. We're always trying to increase that as well. And then the in-kind contributions were primarily the $75,870 was in artwork that we received. And all of the work on the campus has either been donated or loaned for extended periods of time, and we're very fortunate to have extremely generous artists and donors who see this as a great opportunity to expose our students to the incredible variety of art in our city and county. So that really describes the revenue, and there's some great highlights to point out. We were awarded a commitment of $250,000 from Christus St. Vincent, and that was to fund faculty salaries for a respiratory therapy program. That was an extraordinary thing, and it's not something that happens just overnight. We've been cultivating Christus. The last time we got a $250,000, well, it was $125,000, was 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, and we hadn't gotten anything since. And basically, at that time, it was under another president of the hospital. They said, "This is for you, please don't come back." And I said, "Sorry, we'll be back." And we were back every year. But they went through a lot of changes, as we did as well. And I just wanted to point out that a gift like that, not only does it take time to cultivate the relationship, but it's at many levels. So our faculty was very involved in establishing great relationships with the respiratory therapy program. They come from the respiratory therapy program at the hospital, and they work here. But if it hadn't been for the relationship between President Grissom and President Carrier at the hospital, it wouldn't have been a done deal. So it takes many, many hands. And of course, we're so grateful for our annual gift from Lannel. It's something that has funded our whole Trades in Advanced Technology program, our sustainability program, and we have received that every year now for this will be the 8th year. And that's a wonderful gift, and it ranges from $75,000 to $100,000 based on how they're doing. So that's an extremely valuable partnership, and we want it to continue. We received 7 new endowed scholarships. I want to point out that the priority list that the foundation recently received from the president, we are completely committed to meeting those goals that you've set forward, especially raising new scholarship money, because it's more important now than ever before, especially with all the cuts in lottery scholarships. And we're trying to raise money that is more flexible, so that students who've never considered coming to college and who can only take maybe 3 credits would still have the ability to get some assistance, because even with that small amount, they will need that. So we're working on raising flexible funds as well as endowed scholarships, just every kind of support you can think of, because we know that that's one of the biggest financial obstacles, or one of the biggest reasons that people feel that they can't come here. And we're committed to working on reducing those obstacles, removing any barriers to students. We received, again, the $50,000 from the Domanica Foundation, and that is for the Contract for Better Tomorrow program that has proven to be an extremely effective program for increasing retention and completion of students who are seeking degrees and certificates. And I won't go through every one of these things, but I think you can see in the report that it's varied, it covers a lot of ground, and the expense report is that the total expenses were just over $1 million. It is an increase in expenses by $277,000, and that's because this represents grants that we have received and the expenditure of funds from those grants. So it's not like we're having meetings in Hawaii. We're just working on getting the grant money and then making sure it's transferred to the college and expended. So, and then you have a pie chart that shows the operating expenses, and of course the majority of that is in program support. We are also working very hard to create more scholarships and services for our veterans. We have special scholarships for Native American students, for students with disabilities, and we'll continue to try to respond to the needs of the college in whatever form it takes. So, Madam Chair, if there are any questions, I can be happy to answer.
Well, how many presidential scholarships are 10,000 or more,
15.
right?
15 to endow presidential scholarship.
Okay, so how many of those do we have now?
Oh, the number's not on the top of my head, but I think it's somewhere around 30, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next level?
The next level is an academic scholarship, and that's at 10,000 to endow. And we allow people to build that amount over the course of a year. They can continue to add funds to it. And so that would cover the endowed scholarships, the two types that we have.
And then the other scholarships are just,
Well, there are people that do not want to give an endowed scholarship. They want the money to be expended as soon as possible, and we call those annual scholarships because we get them on a year basis, and as soon as they're spent, then they're gone. The others just build over the years, and they award in perpetuity. So, but everybody likes to get the money up front. We recently received a commitment to a presidential scholarship. And it takes a while for it to build and to mature before it can award. But the donor, in this case, wanted to provide money to students right away. And so gave us additional money so that 2 could be awarded in the spring and fall, and 2 could be awarded in the spring.
and the average scholarship amount is?
It's $1,000 for full-time, $500 for part-time, $300 to $500 depending on the number of credit hours. But the beauty of it is that it's private funds, the private donors. It's not subject to the same rules of the lottery or state or federal funding, and there's flexible funding, so it can be used for books, it can be used for childcare or transportation, whatever the needs are. Again, removing the barriers to the students coming here and completing and getting a degree or certificate.
And remind us how you determine who gets those scholarships.
We do not. We determine that the funds are used we honor the intention of the donor, and then all of the funds are awarded through financial aid. The foundation has no involvement in how it's distributed. We get the money, and it's up to our financial aid department that does an incredible job of getting those funds out to students. So we have a firewall between the foundation and we get the funds. We don't want even an appearance of any influence or anything like that.
Other questions?
Do you have any sense, Deborah, of the need for funds among our students?
We have a very strong sense of it, and it's more than a sense. I mean, it's quantified, and we use database that the OIT develops and the Office of Student Success, and we have many, many anecdotal stories of students who share what they're faced with, and the stories are compelling. They're extraordinary. They're heartfelt, real struggles that students have to come here and to stay and get a degree. So, yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add to that. You know, when we were working on the budget this year, we decided that for out-of-state tuition, we raised it, but we also decided to waive. It used to be the first 6 hours could be taken at the in-state rate, and we decided to do away with that and see what the impact would be. We're getting quite a bit of information on that. It is heavily impacting those students who are taking less than 6 credit hours, which is one of the reasons we're looking at developing some more flexible scholarships. A lot of our students can only take 1 class at a time, and they're very serious, and they do it every semester. But, raising their tuition almost $100 per credit hour.
Because out of state.
Yes, but they're local students who don't have residency.
Because you have to have a year.
They're local students who don't have residency, and so they may be undocumented students. And so we need to revisit that. We're going to need to raise more monies and for more flexible scholarship funds, or we're looking at putting some data together of how much we think that has impacted and what the cost might be to see whether or not we would recommend you restore the waiver for the first 6 hours. So we're looking at some legal issues of what our options might be.
But I thought that we long ago allowed for any person who had lived in our community for X period of time, regardless of immigration status, to get our in-district rate.
It applies to certain students who graduated from New Mexico High
It's
School.
only from those who graduated from.
Right, so there is a subset of students who've been coming here who don't fit that criteria, and unfortunately, those are the ones we may have impacted by our
Well, why don't we
decision.
change our policy on it?
Well, one of the things we want to put together the data because we're going to come up with a recommendation for you before spring registration starts. It's too late for fall. But we are using that tuition increase impact fund to help the students, but we've discovered that the students below 6 credit hours are being impacted, so we're looking at changing the rules on that so that we maybe can help some of those students who didn't get to register this fall before it's too late.
Okay,
So-
well, I'm just suggesting going at it from another perspective, rather than changing the tuition.
Well, let's talk about it offline, what might be that thing. So I think we may, part of what happens is we are bound by the state's rules on residency. We do not set residency.
But we have the policy different.
We can't change residency, though. That's the problem. So we're looking at all our
Okay.
options. Okay.
And if I may just add, from the foundation's standpoint, the funds are from individuals who have agreed that these are important students and that want to support these students, and they don't have any sense of, there's no need, I mean, these are from independent sources or private foundations that are supporting this. And so we'd hate to see an extra layer of bureaucracy on top of that, because it is much more flexible than state or federal funding.
Right. No, I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
an extra layer, but less of a layer.
Right, great.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
a quick question. What is the size of our endowment?
Our endowment is close to $8 million.
Thank you.
And your audit is in process?
Oh, and our audit for the last fiscal year
No,
was.
for the current one.
It is in process, but last fiscal year it was,
We know it was.
No
perfect.
findings.
We know it was perfect.
yes, it's
Okay.
it's in play. And we have to have ours filed 2 weeks before yours, so it's a little different this year.
Other comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work.
And next, last in the President's Report section is an update on the strategic plan. Mr. Morimoto and Ms. Gallegos.
Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom, we are here today, sorry about that, to present the annual report on the SFCC strategic plan. We were able to go through this in some detail at the work session earlier, but I wanted to go through and hit some of the highlights from the executive summary. We really made some great steps this year in terms of increasing accountability and in terms of how we implement strategic planning, and I think that really shows in the results that we got this year. First and foremost, it's already been mentioned that we exceeded our 20 by 20 wildly important goal. I want to say that, Cheryl Fields was the executive team lead for that project, and she, along with a team of staff and faculty from, all areas of the college, worked together to increase that graduation rate from 18% last year to 22% this year, and we're really pleased with those results and the work that team did, and I think it's not unlike the other successes that we had. There was a lot of teamwork, there was a lot of leadership from the executive team, and it really paid off. Related to that 20 20 by 20 goal was the number of degrees and certificates that were awarded, and that was also led by Cheryl Fields. And that increased from 874 degrees and certificates last year to 1,019 this year. So again, really impressive results. We saw similar results having to do with the audit findings. I think, as you all know, we went from 6 audit findings the previous year to down to just 2 other findings this year, which is a huge improvement. And at the same time, our Higher Learning Commission composite financial indicator score rose to 3.3, which is indicates to our accreditor that our financial health has improved a great deal. Hispanic faculty increased from 21% to 23%. That over time has been a difficult one to move because there's not a lot of turnover of full-time faculty, but we are very pleased with the 2% increase there.
When we first started. And when we first started 3-4 years ago and trying to improve the representativeness of our full-time faculty in terms of Hispanic faculty ratio, was that back in the day it was about 18%, 16%, somewhere around there. So over the years we've been making slow but steady progress toward it, which we're very pleased.
There was also an emphasis on emergency preparedness training, and a large number of the faculty and staff were trained at a campus-wide event this year, along with continued training of students. And we were also able to complete a number of projects. Some were completed in whole, some were, it was phase 1 that was completed, but some of those include the performance management system, the evaluations of staff, that was put into place, and 2 cohorts, the full set of employees completed that this previous year. There was also the first phase of implementation of the Cognos dashboard project, making data more available across campus. And the banner recruitment module, which was some of the features of that were mentioned in an earlier report, that project was completed. And the market penetration project, which gave data, a new set of data that could be used towards recruitment. So again, we're very pleased with the results this year. This report ends with a set of recommendations that were then folded into the next year's process. And that's on page A37, I believe, which shows the short-term goals that we'll be focusing on this next year, and also along the top shows kind of the rationale for why those were prioritized. They align with things that we're trying to accomplish towards our accreditation, towards some of our collaborations that we're doing, like with Achieving the Dream and the Birth to Career Network. And it also, the goals are also responding to feedback that we're getting from faculty and staff through campus-wide surveys, campus-wide meetings, that kind of thing. So we feel like moving forward, we're really trying to focus on better integrating the work that we're doing in strategic planning, better aligning it, so that we're always continuing to stay focused. So with that, I stand for any questions.
We had quite a bit of discussion at our work session on this. Does anybody have any further questions, comments?
Madam Chair, if I could, I want to thank the staff from OPI who's worked on this, but I want to thank everybody across the college. We've really worked together and focused on a lot of these issues, and I think we're seeing a lot of the results. Some of these issues and initiatives we started 2 and 3, 4 years ago, and we're now seeing them come to fruition. So I want to thank everybody, faculty, staff, for their work on this.
Madam Chair, if I could also mention that, I mentioned the lead person for our wildly important goal, but just so you know that all of the KPIs in the strategic plan for the previous year were each led by an individual executive team member, and I really want to thank all of them for the work that they did this year. It was a lot more intense than it's ever been, and I really appreciate their participation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And that's it for the. yeah.
Communications.
Okay, communications. We have Faculty Senate report.
Chair Single, President Grissom, and members of the board. Thank you very much. It's nice to be back. It's been exciting seeing a lot of my colleagues and seeing the look in their eyes. Normally I think of people coming back from vacation. It's a little depressing sometimes, but I'm very excited to see a lot of my colleagues are just really excited to be back, and it's contagious, and I think the students feel it as well. It was, for many of us coming back, it was a surprise to see that President Grissom was going to be retiring. And I would like to personally, and the Faculty Senate as well, thank him for his service. And I'm sure we have another couple of months to find other ways to express our appreciation. But it's been, you took us through some difficult times, and we truly appreciate it. Let's see. So Rebecca Jeffs is no longer our communication officer. So she is now a director. Although under the Faculty Senate Constitution, she is still welcome to be a member and be represented as faculty in the governance process. She's chosen to step down as an officer. We just completed our election, and Clark Bond has been elected to fill the vacancy of the communication officer. Our secretary, as it turns out, is not going to be able to, she's been assigned classes during our meeting time, so it looks like we'll be having another election very soon to choose a new secretary. We also discovered that we have in our Constitution elections that happen during our first meeting of the year, the very beginning of the year, but our adjunct faculty list we're working from is from the previous semester, so we'll be rewriting our bylaws to allow us to have an election. So we're delaying that election a little bit to allow the new adjunct faculty to vote for their representatives. There, of course, have been concerns raised over the reorganization. A lot of the faculty were away during the summer, and were surprised to find that there was a reorganization going on. Some of the chairs expressed concern that they've had reduced compensation, but we do not yet have associate deans in place, and so they don't necessarily have a reduced workload as of yet. So that's something that we'll work through, and the faculty in general are very open to the idea of what we're going through in the reorganization, but there's been a desire expressed that even though it's something would be retroactive, that we take it through our regular governance process to give best recommendations on how we think it can be best implemented. And we'll be coming forward with those recommendations later in the semester. We've also had some reports from other faculty members who have been asked to reduce ATA, the alternative time assignments, that seem to have no basis in reduced workload or any change in policy. So we'd like to look into that and move forward, trying to find out why some of the people who were not considered a part of the union agreement are also being asked to reduce their ATAs. We also want to go back and review the RIFs that are going on and find out, and we'd like to get some sort of a financial report. It appears to us, and we'd like to see the numbers to back up one way or the other, that a lot of the RIFs are actually, the savings are not going to occur until the next fiscal year. And so if it's the financial emergency is this year, but we're not receiving a benefit from next year, maybe it's something we need to revisit in the development of next year's budget. Again, we're reworking the Faculty Senate Constitution. And we're looking at the we're very interested in following very closely and being very involved in the search for a new president. We also, I know that on the agenda for this evening is the policy review schedule. We're going to be reviewing that schedule for the first time on Friday as a Senate body, so if it's possible that that could be tabled so that we can give our feedback on the policy review schedule, we would certainly appreciate it. Our 2018 and 19 goals we met as an officer group. We're working on a core adjunct status for regular part-time faculty, people who return year after year, teach the same course, but are treated the same as any adjunct faculty who just is brought in from time to time. And we'd like to see some recognition of their long-term commitment to the college in a variety of ways. We'll come through with proposals about that this year, hopefully. We're working on improved communication with the staff senate, student senate, the administration, governing board, and the union. And so we're looking forward to many opportunities for that. We're looking forward to monthly meetings with both the president and the academic vice president this year. And we've discussed having joint faculty staff officer meetings every month so that we can be together on at least aware of each other's issues and be having conversations about that. There's an idea floated up at our last meeting also about hosting governing board members for informal lunches in the campus center once a month, having one board member come in and just be there to meet with people on the campus community. And we look forward to that. If that's a possibility at all, we'd like to see every board member just at least once during the college campus year come and just be there, and the faculty senate and hopefully the student senate and the staff senate would like to host that as well. Another thing we want to address this year is the temporary and probationary status of faculty. Some of our members have been temporary for extended periods of time, and we'd like to get just some clarity on what is a temporary faculty and how does somebody move out of temporary and onto permanent status. So we haven't gotten true clarity on exactly how that comes about, but some people have been on temporary status for a long time. And we think that there really are already permanent members of our community. We'd like to see them come back in as full-time core faculty. The other thing we'd like to look at is, just because it was unclear and we think it would be helpful in general, is to get a clear definition of exactly what constitutes a bona fide financial emergency, so that it's not something that appears arbitrary, but there is some list of definitions of what gets you to that point, because it was unclear to many of the members of the faculty what constituted the financial emergency and whether or not we actually had one. And so that's our report for this time. We will be having a meeting Friday, so we will have minutes from our convocation meeting out to you after that, and I will probably have other members of our executive team coming to make presentations with me monthly. I will say, I know there's been some criticism of that in the past. I do have a class conflict with the executive team meetings this semester again, and I've spoken with other members of the executive group, but we're also looking for other members of the faculty senate to step up and be able to attend those meetings. We do find benefit from going to those. So thank you very much.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Staff Senate.
Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom, my apologies, we were not able to get minutes in time. We've been, our secretary position has been in transition. However, I do have copies, so I'd like to.
Thank you.
Just a couple points. We'd like to echo the Faculty Senate's thanks to President Grissom for guiding us through the last couple of difficult years, and we look forward to finding other ways to thank him in the near future. As he retires, we'd like to make sure that the Staff Senate Compensation Committee gets well entrenched in place so that that continue with the interim, and we have chartered that formally, so we'd like to move forward with that. The big discussion this time has been on how we can engage with the college strategic plan, and the Staff Senate decided that we would focus on Goal 3, which is engage employees in the workplace, and so we have a number of ideas that we will be moving forward with and investigating on how we can do that. We had a very successful Staff Appreciation Day in the spring. We'd like to continue with that, but also investigate some benefit options and those kinds of things with HR so that we can present them to you in the future. And we'd like to finally go along with Faculty Senate and say that we're very interested in the interim process as well as the long-term process, and we would like to be sure to participate in the open meetings that you're planning, and look forward to meeting the candidates. So I will stand for questions.
No questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
a lot. And do we have a student government report? Not yet.
Not quite yet. Well, actually, yes. We had our first, it was not actually an official meeting today. It was more of a meet and greet. We had taquitos here at the campus center, and we went around with the students and invited them to the student government meetings. We also passed out the schedule for the meetings for the fall semester, and also informed them that we are looking for senates for all the schools, all 5 schools. So if deans, if you have anybody that you would like to recommend, send them down to the OSD downstairs, where they will be able to find applications and see what is needed of a senator for each school. And that, I believe that, and our next meeting is Wednesday, August 3rd, which is next Wednesday, from noon to 1. And that is it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have approval of the consent agenda with the removal of the regular meeting of June 28th. So that's,
Was the June one?
June 28th is the one you have corrections for, Jack?
The regular meeting, correct?
Yes, yes. So we have, that means we have the board retreat minutes, and we have the final readings of the institutional review board and the conducting of surveys for the consent agenda.
I move that we pass the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then we are on to actions removed, items removed from the consent agenda. So that's the regular meeting of June 28th.
Madam Chair, just 2 typographical items which I think need correcting. One's on page C6. Just minor things. In the middle of the page, under paragraph F, second bullet, second to last line. This year the funds were found, and they were willing to keep the price what they had originally quoted us.
So we need an at
Yes.
in front of the what?
Keep the price that they.
Or
I
that,
think it's meant to be that.
okay.
It's, again, just a typo.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then on page C8, 6th bullet, about the middle of the page. It would be important to hear what your expectations are. Whatever we communicate would need to be communicated equally to the employer and the representative of the employees. So change communication to communicate.
Whatever we communicate, okay.
Just those 2.
Okay,
Move for approval.
there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
As amended.
As amended.
Excuse me.
All right, we are on to action items, and if we can, since we have people here in the audience, I'd like to remove F, approval to apply for NSFATE grant. Next?
No approval to seek our RPSP funding.
Seek approval of RSP.
RPSP funding.
RPSP funding.
We'd like
Move
to-
that up to the next item.
Yes.
So who's presenting that? Margaret?
Ann Black and a whole group of people. So in your book, this is on page E26.
Okay, take it away.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, President Grissom. We're here today to receive permission to apply for the FY18 Research and Public Service Projects. That is application through the New Mexico Higher Education Department. We are basically asking for the same amount of money and same projects that we applied for last year, as we are not sure about the amount of funds that will be available under the RPSP. And at this point, the programs that we're applying for are automotive technician, SBDC, nursing, as well as rad tech. Are there any questions that either I or someone else can answer?
Let me just one clarification. So the amount of money we're asking for is the amount of money we actually received for this year in the last budget that was
Yes.
passed. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Which is, so the amounts on here are the amounts we received
For this year,
for
correct.
this year. And so we're just asking for the same amount.
Correct.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
two questions. Remind me, please, what NATEF means?
Oh,
It's the,
under the automotive program, that's the National Association for,
automotive technicians. It's the National Automotive Technician Training Program. It's their national certification for
and
hiring.
it leads to ASE certified technicians, which is automotive services. Oh, gosh.
There's an E in there.
I know.
And we're totally
That's,
getting E.
that's the only instructor not here tonight, is John.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
But
hold that for next
But that's the
meeting.
national accreditation program for post-secondary automotive programs.
And how does this work into our automotive technician program, which I believe we currently have off campus right now in a little storage unit or something like that, and or close to it, but down off of Rancho Boulevard. But is this to pay for technical training, or what is this money for?
Yes, sir. Madam Chair, President Grissom, members of the board, Member Sullivan, the NATEF accreditation requires specific equipment, facility structures. We are sufficient, and it's a little better than a storage unit. It's actually a large high bay. And there are certain pieces of equipment, resources that have to be available for us to actually be able to qualify for that, including simulators, lifts, and certain types of modeling that wouldn't require us to have one car at a time, where students can be working on multiple types of simulation devices. This money will help us actually get that The size of the location is sufficient. It will be better when we have more space, but with these dollars, we'll be able to actually get some of that supplemental equipment that will help us meet those accreditation standards. And I understand that the National Association for Technical Education, and it's the F that's completely going from my mind, but it's, is it a foundation? It's foundation, but it's actually the accrediting body for the automotive industry. It actually is what employers look for from their graduates. So if they come in and they've been through a NATEF certified program, then they would be more employable.
And this equipment, if we were funded for this, would then this be relocatable to our new facility here on campus?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George?
You mentioned that you made application for these funds last year. Did you learn why that application was turned down last year? Did they give you any sense of that, or they just turn you down?
So, Member Sullivan, Member Gamble, and members of the board, these programs were funded last year. In fact, these 4 programs, we have to reapply every year, and we're just not asking for more money. Okay, so we had others that we submitted last year that were not funded, and we're not resubmitting those just because of the state's budget situation.
Well, then how can it be? Why do you do it every year? I mean, was the money not sufficient for that equipment last year? Was it only partially funded, or?
No, sir. Madam Chair, President Grissom, Member Gamble, we actually are in a developmental phase, so we have, but we're actually growing our student population. So we were funded. We have acquired those pieces of equipment that have allowed us to keep up with the enrollment as it's been. Our goal is to continue to grow that. We are, right now, we could stay, but we're not going to grow any further. If we were to offer additional programming, we're going to need more equipment. So on the trajectory that we've planned, we're actually asking for less than what we truly need, and we'll actually get there if we continue on this path, maybe in the next 1.5 to 2 years, if we were to continue to get funded the way we are. But that all depends on growth, President.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, just to add to that, this is not all for equipment. This is really our operating dollars. So the way the state has changed their budgeting process, there is no way to get funding for new programs other than through the RPSP process. And until they roll this money into our base budget, we have to go back and ask for it every year. And so this is actually to support our operations. It could be to buy some equipment. It could be to support some of our faculty salaries. It could be support curriculum development. It could be to support travel to conferences related to accreditation. So in all of these RPSP fundings, we're really seeking the dollars for at least some portion of our operating budget because there was talk of rolling these programs into our base budget, but it did not happen this year. So. And in the case of the Small Business Development Center, this is all of the state's matching dollars to the federal funds plus some for their operations.
Madam Chair, President Grissom, Member Gamble, absolutely, if I may even clarify. So thank you, President Grissom, for that clarification. A portion of the salary of our faculty is covered by that, as well as some very specific training and travel that is required for the NATEF accreditation. So that is also part of that, and that is an ongoing cost. Thank you for that clarification.
Is there any additional support that you need for preparing this grant, or do you have sufficient information and resources to do that?
Yes, it's a fairly simple process in terms of the application, and we do it every year. They will have hearings sometime in October. We'll have a chance to explain what we're doing and why they should give us money. Yeah.
Some years they don't have hearings, some years they do.
Yeah.
There's been really no new dollars in the RPSB funding for a long time. And so but if we don't apply, we don't get the dollars. That's the problem. But we pretty much.
Good luck.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
a quick question about the nursing education request. So what is the status of our standing? And do we think we're in good standing to be able to apply for this money and it will be looked upon favorably?
Madam Chair, Member Keith, members of the board, President Grissom, we are in excellent standing at this point. We received back our full accreditation status from the Board of Nursing. It's all a blur now, but I think it was late spring. So, I mean, we are being monitored, and we're taking this very seriously. And so with our new director, Terry Tewart, who's in our audience, we're working very diligently to maintain that pass rate and to provide our students and our faculty what they need. And so we've been receiving this funding since I've been here, which is 2009. So it's something that we have come to rely on, and I think they know at the state level how challenging it is to get faculty to teach in nursing because they can make so much more in the private sector, and the cost that it affords the college to educate these. We've got 120 this semester. So I'm optimistic that hopefully it will be flat and they will give us what they've always given us.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just add to that, the original intent of this funding, it went to several institutions, was to expand our nursing programs in the state in order to meet the demand for the nursing shortage. And so by adding more faculty, we could bring in more students, get more clinical sites and so forth. And so we're just trying to keep that going with the additional cost related to that.
Great, thank you.
A question on that point. Initially, this money went to pay our faculty that were doing our ADN program, and I see, it sounds like it's a real shift that now we're paying for the BSN.
No, we're only paying for our portion. We're only paying for the classes that are our classes in the associate degree program, but it is aligned with the BSN program in the track. So it's part of that was that whole curriculum development and collaboration.
But the way it's written, it sounds like we're paying for what New Mexico State and UNM should be paying for as far as the BSN portion of
And we are not. They are paying for their faculty.
Okay.
And if I might add, Madam Chair, there's been sort of a shift this last year, because what we didn't realize going into these partnerships is all the work that our faculty they were doing in order to make the smooth transition for that final semester, which is here, but taught by the universities, using a lot of our faculty and adjunct faculty. We've come to the point where they are taking more ownership of the responsibility and starting to pay some of our faculty, but we're still in transition. So some of it is going to adjunct faculty to help our faculty, and also the clinical coordination.
Okay. And if a student just wants to get an ADN, is that fine?
Madam Chair, that's a loaded question. So in theory, yes. We still have 2 tracks. You can apply for the associate degree only. But the interesting thing that's happened is for the first time since we've been offering the dual track, our group starting this fall are all dually enrolled. And I think that's just a reflection of the national trend and certainly the state trend because of the statewide curriculum. People are starting to see the value of getting a BSN, staying in a community like Santa Fe, and saving a lot of money on a dual degree of getting an associate degree and a bachelor's at the same time. But yes, in theory, they could still opt to do that.
Okay. Any other questions?
You want to ask me about Rad Tech?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, just one other question back on the automotive program. Have we developed any partnerships in that program yet with any of the auto dealerships in the area?
Yeah, Madam Chair, President Grissom, Member Sullivan, absolutely. We have a very strong advisory committee that is made up of dealership members as well as other stakeholders in the automotive community. We work closely. It's one of our expectations for that accreditation, as well as funds that we receive through Perkins. So we have very strong partnerships, and they are wholeheartedly reliant on us to turn out their next phase of employees. The automotive industry is one that is moving rapidly. As we all know, the car from last year isn't the same. So they are very closely tied to our program from this town.
Madam Chair, I got
Oh, my goodness, holy
go to the big
cannoli.
one, the big one.
We are now, we're a Subaru university. We're a Subaru program. So Subaru actually is now a partner and providing simulators and equipment and
cars.
And cars. And I'm going to go get a Subaru.
So it's not for little old ladies anymore? You know, yippee-doo in my Subaru? Well,
If you watch the commercials, it's for dogs. These
yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, following up on that, what are these car dealerships providing other than advice? The president said vehicles. Are these like vehicles on loan, or how does that work?
Member Sullivan, we have received various pieces of equipment. We haven't really seen any infusion of dollars, which we'd like to. I will say that don't want to say that I'm not grateful for the time and energy that people have put into attending meetings and helping us refine our program, but they are also providing to us opportunities for our students. Our students can have internships, things of that, at that level at this point, but we're always asking, to be quite honest with you.
Is there any potential that some of those employees could volunteer time to assist in an adjunct capacity or as an advisor capacity in the classroom?
Yes, guest lectures, that's certainly, yeah.
Do we do that yet?
To some level, we actually have.
Okay. So we're developing that, enhancing that relationship.
Absolutely.
Working on, okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just add to that, the partnerships with the major manufacturers like Subaru, and there's at least two others that want to talk to us, that's where we actually get our equipment. They provide simulators, they provide training equipment, they provide full cars. In some cases, they provide cars that the college can use, and so that will be what will grow over time.
Oh, I have one more question. So this radiology technology money, is that, we've gotten that before? Or wasn't that what was cut off?
I'm sorry.
No, we have gotten this before, so this is a continuation.
Okay.
Just as you remember, there's two things I want to say. Number one, I want to congratulate the faculty who we have accreditation from the
Good.
association. So that covers our students we currently have and our past students. We are still operating under the assumption that we might have to close the program down after this year, but we wanted to request this money just in case. We still have the possibilities from some funding support similar to we received from Krista St. Vincent for respiratory. And so we weren't recruiting for a new cohort this year anyway. And so we're teaching out the current cohort, and we will have to make a decision before the legislature meets as to whether we're going to recruit a new cohort. If we decided not to, we would just let them know we wouldn't want this funding.
And Madam Chair, if I might add, the faculty and the director have been doing an excellent job partnering with our clinical partners in the community. We still don't have equipment. So but in a way, it's nice because they're actually able to work on real equipment at Santa Fe Imaging, et cetera. But it would be nice if we could have our own.
Right. But it's pretty pricey.
Yes.
Okay, so we're asking for this and we'll see.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move approval of the RPSP funding request.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Now you can leave. All right, we're back on to Nick, approval of the financial reports, June and July. We did discuss these at our finance committee, the board finance committee yesterday, so if you can hit the highlights for our listening audience, and if we have any questions.
Sure, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom. We did review these yesterday with the Board Finance Committee as well as the Financial Oversight Committee on Monday afternoon. So in short, we're looking at 2 months. One is the fiscal year ended June 30th, if I could start out with that one. At the end of the year, because at the end of June, that's when our fiscal year 17 ended, we had a total of $6.9 million in cash in our operating account. That's a $258,000 improvement from the prior year. Just like to note there, we really need $8 to $10 million in the operating cash account, bank account at the end of June. And that's in order to be able to survive that kind of trough where we get to in October, November, due to how we collect local tax revenue. Tuition and fees were up 6% at the end of year, and that is at $7.3 million. Local appropriations finished up by 1%. Up, and that's $178,000 for a total of $17.2 million. State appropriations were down 7% at $760,000 due to state cuts. In total, ING revenues were down just 1% with the increases in tuition and fees and the decreases in local appropriations netted out to be about 1% down when you compare to the prior year. Expenses, on the expense side, they were up about $65,000 for a total of $33.3 million. And our public service fund beat our forecast by about $16,000, so that was good news, of course. Auxiliaries missed our projection by about $24,000. Of course, that's a positive net gain to the college. It just didn't, we thought we would actually have a larger positive gain there. And at the end of June, receivables were at $1.1 million. And most of the receivables were within 30 days. About $900,000 of that was in the first 30 days of outstanding receivables.
Yeah.
With that, I can stand for any questions on June.
Kids Campus. So we ended Kids Campus 4,500 positive. No?
That's July,
No.
that's July.
Oh, that's July.
Yeah, I have those numbers for you.
Just look at July.
June? Okay.
Look only at July.
No, I want to know what June was.
Yeah, I think if you can scroll on the overhead down to the financial report for the end of June. Yeah, keep going. It's on page 4.
Right.
Next page.
Keep going. There you
Okay.
go. That lower
70,000.
section, yes, it's 70,000. And we had budgeted that subsidy of 53,926. It turned out to be 70,000, but because the conference center had better performance, look at the bottom line number there, that 9638. That's a positive $9,638, where we had a budgeted amount of a transfer in of 6,621. So
the conference center subsidized Kids
Yes.
Campus.
Let me add to that. So when we put the budget together for the Kids Campus last year, we anticipated having another pre-K classroom, which we did not get to add because we didn't get the space available to us. It is available now. We're actually have them in a temporary location and are remodeling the permanent space for them at the present time. And that's one of the reasons why you see a positive number in July. So we do have the second or third pre-K classroom that we could not add last year.
And so that should put us in the black for the current fiscal year?
But yes, but when you get to the budget for July, I can't remember what we budgeted for, if we budgeted a subsidy or not, but if it was small.
yeah, we'll look at that. I think that we're planning on breaking even with Kids Campus. this fiscal year.
For the last 25 years, we've been planning on breaking even.
We're $300,000 closer to that goal than we've ever been.
Okay. Any questions?
Can
I
can I-
go through July?
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question? So, when we look at cash projections, so you started your report talking to us about how much cash we had in bank and how much we needed to have to make it through November, which is kind of the next time we get funds in the door. So these funds have to last us through November. What are your projections that we will, of how we'll make it through November? October, November time.
Yeah, we discussed those yesterday with the cash flow projection that we keep track of, and our forecast is that it gets pretty low in November again, but it is getting better. The prior year, we had a lot more challenging circumstances, and so this year, we're going to, according to this projection, which I think it'll actually come in a little bit better than this, but in November, we're thinking it'll go down to about $500,000 in our cash account, right before we get the infusion of local tax revenue.
And would that be enough dollars to cover a payroll?
That's after all payrolls are covered.
Yeah, that's after all payrolls, and we have 3 payrolls in September
Okay.
this year. And so three payrolls in September, take up $4 million about. And so that's why we get pretty low at that point in time. But I mean, literally, in December, we'll have, an infusion of $5 million or so.
Okay.
So it's just that, it's really close there.
Thank you.
But it is getting better. We're showing about $250,000 of cash improvement from the prior year. It's not happening as quickly as we would like, but it is getting slightly better over time.
Okay, you're on to July.
So with July, as you know, it is the first month in FY18, and there's not a lot of activity to be able to really determine some trends. However, we have $6 million in July, and that shows to be about a $500,000 improvement compared to the prior July. Tuition and fees revenue is up 11% at $3 million. That's an increase of $305,000. State appropriations is down 6% to the prior year. ING revenue's up 7%, or $252,000 compared to FY17. And total ING expenses were up 12%, and that's about $180,000 for July.
Any questions? Okay, can we have a motion to accept the financial reports for June and July?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
One more.
One more. FY17 fourth quarter financial report certification.
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, President Grissom, this is the quarterly financial report that we're required to submit to HED. We talked about it yesterday. Some of the questions on this document relate to, issues that a financially troubled institution would be facing. And the first question is, did the institution request an advance of a state subsidy? That our answer is no. Did we fail to make required payments or payroll payments or debt service payments? Did we fail to make payments to vendors? We answered no to all of those. And did we experience any significant anticipated financial changes that are not reflected in a submitted budget adjustment request? The answer to that is no. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
How about a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Who's doing the banking contract? And we did discuss this in our work session, but if you can give us the concise overview of your recommendation, that would be great.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
SFCC is requesting that the board approve the banking RFP. We did pursuant to the 13-1-112, we did conduct a request for proposal, went through the evaluation process. The request proposal was for two things, the merchant banking and the banking services. After evaluation of the four proposals that we received, Century Bank came out as the high scorer. Upon identification of the high scoring, we entered into negotiations. They've identified, and we identified some enhancements to their current offer. One of them being students are being offered, or student, faculty, and staff are being offered, will be offered $2.50 per transaction using the new ATM that we're going to be getting. They're also
Say that again, what?
the ATM charge is going to go from $3 to $2.50 per transaction. They also offered to provide faculty, staff, and students the premium checking account without any minimums, which the minimums would require them to have about $10,000. That's waiving about $25 fee. We're going to be saving about $1,500 average per month on the banking services. We're also going to be saving about $500 on the merchant side per month, which comes to approximately $22,000 savings.
And the term of the contract?
The term of the contract, we're requesting for it to be 8 years under a service contract.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Jack?
as I brought up at the work session, there's two key components to this contract that we don't have in front of us, and one is Exhibit B and the other is Exhibit C. Exhibit B is the invitation to bid, and Exhibit C is the entire Century Bank submittal. And I understand that that the staff is required to keep that confidential, but my concern, as I expressed, was that often what an applicant may submit is different from what may be ultimately developed in the agreement. And so there is, as has been explained, a hierarchy of items as to if there's conflicts, the agreement controls over exhibits and so forth and so on, but where there's possible omissions, then it's silent. So you have to end up either negotiating or litigating what the differences between the exhibit conditions might be and the contract conditions. So this being an 8-year contract, it carries a lot of financial impact to the college. It can be reviewed every 2 years, and I'm sure will be, because I'm sure the bank will want to review costs and negotiate fees. But my suggestion for discussion, consideration by the board is that if we want to move forward and approve this, although I don't know that there's an immediate emergency to do it, that at a minimum it receive a legal review particularly with respect to the exhibits vis-a-vis the contract itself.
Martha?
My question is totally different than that. How do the students know of these enhancements? Is there some way that they get information about that?
Yes, once we enter into the contract, Centric Bank will take a marketing approach to informing faculty, staff about the benefits.
I see. Thank you. So we don't have to do anything about that. The bank does that.
Yes, we may talk to HR, see if they'll allow them to do during the rotation. We will allow them to have a table up front.
Yeah.
But it's going to be their efforts, not ours.
Thank you.
You know, they're going to print the flyers. It would be their marketing.
Kathy?
What? Sorry.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify that the savings is $22,000 a year?
It's approximately $2,000 a month, but I would like to point out that there's a variable there, that for the evaluation, we used the June 2017 numbers, which the numbers are not constant throughout the year. So using that as the base, we're looking at approximately that amount.
Okay.
George?
Could you tell us what exactly attachment B and C, what are in those two attachments?
Okay, attachment B is the request for proposal itself that we put out. That's in our purchasing website. Attachment C is the vendor's response to the RFP. We're hesitant to put that out there as this information is still confidential. In the event, for example, if the board were to decide not to go with the agreement, the second vendor would have access to that agreement, and it could cause significant problems. So it's kind of like a catch-22.
Madam Chair, that's if we release it publicly.
But this document that you have before you are public.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, attachment B, the invitation to bid or the RFP, is that a public document? Was that publicly on our website and is it available now?
Yes, it is.
So the board does have access to that information?
Yes, but in hindsight, in the future, I'll make certain that at least the RFP is included in this document request.
Thank you.
I will say a couple of things. As far as the agreement being reviewed, we don't have to necessarily wait for 2 years to review it. It's an agreement. We can review it anytime. We also have a couple of clauses that will protect us. We can terminate within 30 days for convenience. We also have the appropriations term. And the purchasing office does make it a point to review the agreement, compare it to the response, and to nullify any inconsistencies that are troublesome for SFCC's contract by addressing it via the agreement. And at this point, there weren't many, but those that were addressed through the agreement.
Madam Chair, I move approval of banking contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
What is the, have we ever had our lawyer look at, did the lawyer look at our previous banking contract? Does anyone?
There's nobody here that would know that.
Okay. Mute question. The difference, if we had in front of us now attachment C, and we compared that with what we do have in front of us, we might see some differences, because those would be differences that you negotiated.
Correct.
With the vendor.
Yes, and those differences would be in the agreement, because the agreement takes precedence to.
Right.
To
Right.
anything in attachment C. So the president's would be the agreement, then the request for proposal, which has a lot more terms in the agreement, and then the vendor's response.
And since we have the opportunity, I think it says in here by convenience, at any time, we can call the vendor, we can terminate a contract.
Yes, with 30-day notice.
Right. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. All righty, thank you. Okay, calendar of college policies, approval. Is that you?
That is me. I gotta find where it is, but anyway. Madam Chair, as we've done in the last few years, we have a number of policies that are up for review. Some have not been reviewed. Within the last stages of reviewing policies that have not been updated since we had our new version of policies back in 2013-14. And then we have the first ones coming up for a second review. We have discovered in the last 2 years it was best for the board to adopt a schedule when they wanted to see these policies, which then sets the expectation of when the shared governance groups need to do their activities throughout the year. So I would request that you approve this calendar, and that we will then communicate with the shared governance groups that we expect their work should be accomplished in time to get to governance council, in time to get to the governing board for final first readings and second readings.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
What's the difference between a first reading and a second reading?
The first reading, Madam Chair, members of the board, the first reading is when you first, as a board member, you really see what the draft is and what the changes are. It's where you may ask questions, may suggest changes. Sometimes we make changes based upon your recommendation between the first reading and the second reading. And then after the second reading, if it's approved by you, then it is adopted and in effect.
And who is the audience for the first reading and the second reading?
Both the first and second reading, the audience is the governing board. Before it comes to there, it goes to faculty senate, staff senate, student government, executive team, and then to the governance council itself, which is made up of representatives of those governance groups. And based upon the vote in the governance groups, then it's brought to the full governing board.
So at the termination of the second reading, that is the end of the process.
Unless it doesn't pass.
Right.
Right.
And then back.
Then it would go back to.
So as soon as it passes the governing board, we date it and we get it to posted to our website.
And I think in consideration of the request from the faculty senate, I mean, if there is some really pressing reason why something can't get done because it's very complicated, we can certainly be somewhat flexible, but we really need a guide that gives us direction.
Well, and there have been times when that has changed because of some governance group couldn't get through it in time. But it's nice to have a schedule that is intended to be followed. So it's not cast in stone.
Okay.
And presumably the faculty will be able to hear at the first reading or before?
They'll have seen it.
They'll have seen it before the first
Approved
reading.
it before we get it.
Okay.
Well, they may not have approved
Well,
it.
they
They will have taken action on it
voted
before it goes
on
to
it.
governance council, and then after governance council, it comes to the governing
Yeah,
board.
okay.
Okay.
But it's worked pretty well while everyone has been on.
I do not think we have brought forward a policy that has not been approved by all the governance
Yeah.
groups to date.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And now we have
Information.
information items. Any purchases over 100,000?
What about the NSF ATE grant?
Where's that?
But that's the information item.
No, it's not.
Wait, no,
Isn't it?
approve. Oh, yeah, NSF ATE grant, sorry.
That was the first.
No, we did the
RPSP, but I don't.
But what is this?
Well, that's the first copy of the agenda. We revised it. That's an informational item. It got moved to tab F.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
It was moved to an information item.
But we didn't discuss it under information, did we?
No, we're just now to it.
Oh, okay. It's
Here,
moved
here,
to
there we
here.
go.
Oh,
Put
I
that right
see,
here.
I have an older
Yep.
version. Okay, so,
So, Madam Chair, and members of the board, we have two purchases over $100,000 but less than $150 that we need to report to you. The first one is the investment grade energy audit and project proposal contract. And if you have questions on this, Henry and/or Nick can help us with this. What we're entered into is with Siemens Corporation. They will be doing an energy audit, comprehensive. It actually kicks off tomorrow morning. And based upon this energy audit, they will identify projects that could save us money, and then we would pay for them through the savings. And the outcome of this, which is likely not to happen, is if we didn't do any of the projects, we might end up eventually paying $140,000 for all the services. But this is within the President's authority to do, and we're really excited about this because we've already identified a number of projects that would be paid for through performance contracts.
but isn't this the group that we're collaborating with for the microgrid?
Yes, so they're part of that also.
But this is not part of
This is
that.
separate. Henry, you may just want to say a few words about what the investment grade energy audit is. When we met with the Capital Projects Committee of the HED and Environment Department, DFA were all there. They were really excited that we were going this route.
Yeah. Chairman, members of the board, President Grissom, thank you. I have two other college members here with me, Nick and Ed with me, and they're both very integral parts of this agreement. We're very excited about this performance energy audit, and we refer to it as an investment grade audit. This audit is for discovery, engineering, facilities, financing, and savings over time. The college is looking to upgrade a lot of its energy, renewables, and microgrid projects. And the savings has a potential of up to $3 to $5 million over a 15 to 20-year payback period. So it's a very, very lucrative contract for the college to get into. It's a format of financing that allows us to make these improvements based on engineering analysis and engineering professionals identifying and discovering these new items for repair and replacement. And it provides a financial vehicle for us to get these items upgraded and paid for over a 15 to 20-year lifetime. It's very exciting. Siemens has got an enormous amount of energy and background with regards to this type of contracting and discovery and engineering. So we've teamed with the top professionals in the country, and we're going to save this college an enormous amount of money over time, and we're going to pay for these upgrades based on financing, and the savings through those upgrades is going to what's pay for that financing.
And we buy them from Siemens?
Not necessarily. No, Siemens is really our engineering and discovery vendor. We will perhaps put these items out for RFP, and we'll identify the best cost and best bids to procure these items.
And this audit would be performed over a period of time?
This audit is actually, with your approval, will start tomorrow, and they have 180 days. Yeah, I mean, for your information, yeah. It
is starting tomorrow. The meeting's at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, and in the timeframe is 180 days, and at that point, the vendor Siemens would come forth with a performance energy savings, and we'd look at that savings, and if we agreed to that savings, we would move forward on those plans. And then we would probably have to go in front of HED to get a performance energy contract agreed to.
But that would come out of capital.
That would come out of the financing that's proposed by Siemens, and that would be paid for over time, 15 to 20-year investment.
No, theoretically, we will not pay a dime for the projects. The money will be paid for through the cost savings from the
Yeah.
implementation.
There is no upfront cost for this audit, and there's no time cost for this college. It's paid for through the savings of the replacement of equipment.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I read it a little bit different than that. If the savings do not come up to $140,000, then we're off the hook. But if the savings do come up in their judgment, and we don't agree, we don't carry forward with the supplemental contract, then we are obligated to pay $140,000 for this study. So it's a two-phase situation. Number one, they do the study and come up with a sequence of recommendations. And then the second phase is we enter into an agreement with them with regard to those recommendations. If we don't agree with those recommendations for whatever reason, for example, we don't ever think we can afford them. I mean, if they say, put solar all over the campus or something, we can't afford it, then we're still obligated to pay the $140,000 to Siemens, who did the study. Now, the idea is that it'll be theoretically a reasonable, they've done these before, and it'll be a reasonable idea of what can be done. So we're not, there's no free lunch here. We still have a potential commitment of $140,000 if we choose, or some future board chooses not to implement these improvements. But I wanted to ask on F20, they talk about the utility cost savings are sufficient to fund the SFCC payments of all costs and fees associated with the guaranteed utility savings contract, which also includes their fee. So they come up with a plan which everything will, in terms of savings, will be on the positive side of the ledger, as I understand it, including the $140,000 that we paid to them. And I was just curious do we know over what period of time that would be? These cost savings. Is it over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
It varies based upon the project. So some projects are longer term than others. And so what happens is if we do the projects that exceed the value of the profit of the $140,000, we will not have to pay them anything. If the savings are not as great as they say, we don't have to pay them.
Correct.
So,
But if we don't enter
but different projects, because it depends on which equipment it is, will have different life.
But if we don't enter into a guaranteed utilities savings contract
We would have to pay
with
$140,000.
Siemens Corporation, then we owe them $140,000.
Correct. That's why the purchase order is for $140,000. Our plan is that we will not spend any of our own dollars.
Right. Hopefully.
Right.
Madam Chair, President Grisham, members of the board, I should point out that how Siemens was selected. We did a preliminary energy audit to where we invited Siemens, and we also invited Ameresco, and they both conducted about a 4-week evaluation, and they provided us a response to which then it was evaluated by Henry, IT, purchasing, Camila's group. Everybody evaluated it, and Siemens was identified. In that preliminary energy audit, Siemens did provide some numbers to us that if they missed those numbers, and we say, well, you missed the numbers, then we don't have to pay. I mean, all bets are off.
Madam Chair, I just wanted the board to understand that this was a two-phase situation, that by committing to this first audit starting tomorrow, we're also committing that we were going to undertake these improvements that they recommend, and if not, that we're obligated to pay that consulting fee.
And Madam Chair, yes, I was very concerned about that dollar amount as we looked at this contract. And we spoke directly with the individual from Siemens, Bill Kipnis, and he assured us that it's very rare to ever have to basically approach that payment to settle things up.
And Chairman, members of the board, and President Grissom, it's also fair to say that Siemens is going to have a huge investment in this investment grade audit. So they wouldn't go forward with the engineering and analysis to do this audit if they didn't expect to save more than $140,000. So, I mean, there's a substantial gain for the college and Siemens, and that's why they've entered into this agreement.
Okay.
It does, I guess it does seem that one of the really unknowns may well be how much it would cost the college to, in fact, implement the recommendations that they make. They, for example, might say, well, you could save X number of dollars if you spent X number of dollars to do such and such.
But, Madam Chair, members of the board, what happens is whatever they propose us gets paid for through the savings.
Yeah, and that includes the installation costs.
So if they, I'm just going to pick a simple one, which may not be right, but they say we need to add another 1 megawatt of solar array on campus, they will pay for the solar array's implementation, and we will repay them with our savings and our utility bill.
There is no upfront money,
There is
for
no upfront
example.
money.
It's all covered through the investment grade, and the installation is covered. It's the savings that we receive that will pay them back and the costs.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful contract.
And if we don't get the savings, they don't get
The
paid
federal
back.
government backs these type of contracts as well.
Yes.
State Energy and Natural Resources highly recommends these types of contracts and these studies.
We just let the board know, we did one of these back in 2003 with a different company where we did various upgrades around campus with our variable speed fans and lighting. It was before LED, it was going from T8s to T6s or something like that. So we did some of that, and it did pay for itself. It saved money. And we still reaped the savings after that was paid for.
So let me, if I could just provide my last two cents here. Henry took me a day or two ago out to the greenhouse to kind of go over the greenhouse and just take a look at it, and feel free to chime in here. But it's really incredible. The greenhouse is really starting to be constructed, and it's a remarkable visionary idea where you're going to have this basically this facility that self-sustains itself with the energy that's produced through biofuels, digesters, generators, and solar. And then so I asked Henry, how does this nanogrid really is what the greenhouse really is? I go, how does that turn into a microgrid? And he said that through the performance energy audit, the savings that we're able to obtain off of the audit and maybe purchasing new, more energy efficient, perhaps boilers and equipment, those savings are going to go to potentially buy the solar parking lot solar coverings. We're going to be able to buy those solar coverings, so we're going to get more energy that way in order to develop this microgrid for the college. And eventually the college will actually sustain itself. Right? I get that right, Randy? He's the brain. This is his brainchild.
Except just to let everybody know, the greenhouse is not part of this investment grade audit because that's in another project that was already paid for, but it's a model for it.
And I should also point out that this has not been a 2-month thing. It's been about a year to a year and a half project that Randy's been working with us, and Nick. So it's not something that we just did overnight.
And also, this investment grade audit covers all our energy, our efficiencies, our renewables, our water systems, and our wastewater treatment plant. So it covers the whole gamut.
Good.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Now we have the application for NSFATE grant.
Now we have the other one.
Was that one that? No.
Oh, we have one other project, which
Another
is the nanogrid project, which is the
Is
one,
that what this is? Oh, no.
No, this is
which
something
is the other one that Nick was referring to. And this is with Siemens. It is something that we paid for. We're using the funds from our state appropriation for the microgrid project. And so this is the funds to complete the nanogrid with the greenhouse project that was designed by NREL and is part of this EDA grant proposal. So this is our match using the state funds to the EDA grant for the building energy automation and beam tech, whatever it's said, beam tech.
It's the Beam Energy.
Building energy automation and
Training center.
microgrid training center.
Can we get a list of all these
No.
grants?
Oh, the grants maybe. I thought you wanted the acronyms.
No,
I can't do the
grants,
acronyms.
just all these different.
So this is the one I talked about in my president's report, the EDA grant, but we already have the state appropriation from actually 2 or 3 years ago that we've been saving because we were using the last money to match the EDA grant.
Madam Chair, President Grisham, members of the board, we should also point out that we did save $31,000 through negotiations between us, working of palms and purchasing and finance.
Thank you.
This is a really exciting project as well. This project, as Nick related to, it's going to essentially be a self-sustaining greenhouse, and it'll be a proof of principle. That's why we refer to it as a nanogrid, and that same concept is a concept we will transfer across the campus eventually to make our whole campus a microgrid.
And that's what we got the big microgrid grant for?
That's correct.
And training of people.
That's correct. And all this equipment entails training. So the Siemens system, which is a microgrid building operations management system, will have a online system which will allow the building operators to actually manage the energy efficiency, and we'll have an offline system which will be a simulation system that the Trades and Technology Center will use to educate their students on how to use this type of equipment.
Henry, could you briefly describe what a nanogrid, what a microgrid is?
Nanogrid's a small microgrid. That's easy.
Yeah. A microgrid is a system that is, some people call it an island system, but it's a system that allows an entity or an institution like ours to be self-supported in energy renewables and off the main grid, which would be P&M's grid. So essentially, we will be able to operate off of P&M's grid, but P&M will always be a backup. And the president can relate to this. When we did install our solar system, our 1.5 megawatt system, we installed what was known as an interrupter, which is essentially almost, it's similar to a energy protection system. So when we do go online as a nanogrid or microgrid system, we'll actually be protecting our system and we'll be protecting P&M. It's like a surge protector, if you will. So it essentially allows us to operate in isolation from P&M and actually as our own entity, self-sustaining.
So if I could just add to that, members of the board, a microgrid could be at the community level, it could be at the college level, it could be at a region of a state level, and it allows that local entity, whatever it is, whatever size it is, to decide what its primary source of power is and what its backup sources of power is, and it could either be connected to the main grid or not. And so worldwide, there's over 3 billion people who have either no or very limited access to electricity. And so just like cell phones went to developing countries before here because they didn't have landlines, microgrids are going to go there to begin with. And so we've already started working with groups through the United Nations and India, and we could become the trainer site for the people who are implementing technologies around the world, as well as doing our own system. Also, after Superstorm Sandy, the need to make microgrids a component of our national grid became very apparent. If they had microgrids in New Jersey and New York, whole swaths of those states would not have been down, only sub-pieces because they could have brought themselves back up. So it's a new technology, it's linked to the smart grid, and through our grant for EDA, we actually think we will be training 750 people for new jobs in the industry. And it's not just the utility industry, because it's a computer industry, It's all controlled by computers. It is very IT focused. And we already have an IT, a microgrid component to our computer science degree program.
Yeah, and it's very futuristic to the extent that in the event of a natural disaster, as the president identified, or if we had a cyber attack or a national attack, theoretically, our college, coupled with other microgrid systems, could actually provide power to our essential systems in our community without P&M operating.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
A couple of questions I had on the contractual part of this. First of all, I thought the projects over 150,000 came to the board first. This one's 159,430.
It's 149,000 for the plus tax.
The total is 159,430. The policy doesn't say anything about tax one way or another. It just says what the cost is, unless there's some change to that that I'm not aware of.
The theory behind it is with the procurement code, even when we're doing bidding thresholds, it does not take credit. It doesn't take the taxes into consideration. So if I go purchase something for $59,000, and although the price comes out to $64,000 because of tax, the $59,999 is what's used for the for the bidding threshold.
I'm not talking about the procurement code. I'm talking about the Santa Fe Community College policy for what comes to the board for information purposes as opposed to what comes to the board for prior approval. And I didn't read any of what you just described in that policy. It just says, as I read it, 150,000 unless I missed something.
Well, it's part of being transparent. I mean, the purchasing office and the team could have easily processed this PO for 149,000 and paid the taxes anecdotally. But we're just trying to keep everything in the open and transparent.
But where that refers to is that our procurement policy refers to, says we follow the state procurement code.
Well, but our policy, of course, we follow the state procurement code. That's the law. But the state procurement code says that the tax is added to a contract, depending on the type of contract it is and depending on where you're located, because gross receipts tax changes in every county and in every city. I just think that we need a clarification here if we're going to circumvent our policy as a result of the tax. Let's just change the policy and say that it's $150,000 not counting tax. But when I see 159,000, I expect that would come for prior approval. So that's one issue. But apparently that one's already under the rug. I have this contract is clearly written by Siemens. And I don't see any Santa Fe Community College input to it. On page F39, one thing that concerns me is paragraph 5.2, and that is that all of the work that is undertaken under this contract is owned by Siemens, not by us. So we're paying $149,000, and we don't own the work product. Now, in every state contract that I've been familiar with, the state insists that it owns the work product. So could somebody, excuse me, let me turn this silly thing off. Could somebody explain that to me?
So there is no intellectual property work being done in this process. The intellectual property work was done by NREL on our behalf, and Siemens is just doing the installation and providing the equipment and installing it. So they're not doing in this particular project anything that would be developing intellectual property. If they were, then it would be, this might not be in there, or it would be addressed differently.
It just says owns all rights, title, and interest in the work. And the work is a capital W. And the work is defined in the contract as a capital W. And it's defined as the professional services to be performed and the deliverables to be furnished. So anything that they furnish to us in the way of deliverables under this contract is owned, as stated in the statement of work, is owned by Siemens. Seems like we ought to own that.
But this section, Madam Chair, members of the board, only applies to intellectual property.
It's not about equipment or,
This is section 5 is only intellectual property. It's not who actually owns the equipment or who owns.
Well, fine, I appreciate that clarification. I don't see intellectual property defined in here either. I'm always concerned when I see that the contractor owns the work. I mean, that, even if it's a professional service or a design, my experience has been with the state that the state says, that's ours, we paid for it. The other concern I have with this boilerplate contract is that on page F43, the indemnification clauses, and there's multiple indemnification clauses in here. It goes on for page after page after page after page. But the bottom line is, if you look at 12.1 or parens B, that's not the best place for it. If you look at F45, excuse me, this goes on to say that, the one I just pointed out goes to say if there's any legal action that Siemens is in charge of handling it the way they deem fit. But on F45, on paragraph 13, regardless of what might happen or what legal entanglements we may get in or Siemens may get in, their maximum liability is twice the pre-tax value of the agreement. So if there's an accident, if there's some cause of liability, someone gets hurt as a result of their recommendations, which we implemented, and some legal action was brought against the college, Siemens would certainly be brought into the claim, but their liability would only be twice times $149,000, which is way below what normal liability insurance carriages are. 1 to 2 million is pretty common. So I really have a concern with that boilerplate. And it goes on and on. The indemnity just continues throughout the entire contract. So I'm concerned that we adopt these boilerplate contractor-developed contracts. And this is a very careful, I read the whole thing. I was amazed. It's a beautiful contract. It's a beautiful contract for Siemens. I just have a basic philosophical problem with us accepting ipso facto boilerplate contractor contracts. We just, I think, put ourselves out on a limb, and as long as nothing happens, everybody's fine. But as soon as something happens, the first place they go is to this contract, and we're SOL. So again, this is a contract that's already been entered into by the college. So this is an information item, but that's the information that I would offer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, President Grisham, Member Board Sullivan, I would like to state that this was not a template agreement that we just accepted from Siemens. This was a contract that we did negotiate extensively between us, purchasing, POMS, and even IT. In our discussions with Siemens, the agreement, the GSA agreement that we're using to be able to make this procurement is the standard that they use for other microgrid, for the federal government. And we did, the original agreement that they had was really one-sided, and we were able to at least chisel and make it a little bit more. Our liability is limited to the $1 million per the New Mexico Tort Claims Act. And in this case, what we're purchasing, it's more software, is it not? I mean, or,
It's a software server.
it's a software server system. So when we were doing the negotiations, we felt comfortable accepting the 2 times. It's not like it was a construction project or something that has more liability associated with it.
Okay, thank you all for your presentation. And we are on
Finally, we're at the NSF ATE. Ann and Josh are coming up. There we go.
what are they talking about?
This,
NAE.
we're gonna apply for a National Science Foundation Advanced Technical Education.
Okay,
We need more acronyms.
yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom, I apologize for not having this in your packet. So,
Is this complicated?
the application itself is complicated, but hopefully our explanation is not.
Good answer.
Madam Chair, members of the board, President Grissom, I wanted to thank Henry and Nick for really explaining what a microgrid is, because I'm just the grants person, so I think, along with President Grissom, did a much better job. So we're applying for a $600,000 National Science Foundation Advancing Technological Education. And this grant will be focused on the work that we're doing with the microgrid. And what we want to do is really energize our educational side of the program and improve our current certificate and possibly expand it out to an Associate of Arts, Associate of Applied Science, an Associate of Science degree. This is the one program through the National Science Foundation that really focuses on 2-year colleges. And the National Science Foundation has put an emphasis on Hispanic serving institutions and funding them. So we're really excited about this grant. And so we really want to build on the work that we've already done, the investment we're already making to make this program even better. One of the great things about this grant is it aligns a STEM career pathway from secondary education all the way through baccalaureate and beyond. And we look forward to being able to do a lot of outreach activities within this grant to secondary with an emphasis on minority, female, and other underserved populations in our community, to recruit them in the STEM pathway and to help them complete the microgrid training program here at Santa Fe Community College. So it's $600,000 over 3 years, and it's due on the 5th of October. And Dean Bustamante and Landon are working collaboratively to pull the 2 schools together to work together on this one program, or this one grant application.
When will we know if we get it?
Sometime in the spring, yeah. Usually it's about 4 or 5 months.
Madam Chair, this does not require our approval.
No, we're just information.
Thank you.
Can I have a quick question about the alignment between post-secondary or so the alignment process? So how does that work between high school and post-secondary and us?
Sure. So at the high school level, they have a STEM pathway, especially at, say, for instance, Santa Fe High School. And they have a pre-engineering program along with computer science. And we're already offering dual credit classes in those areas. And we'd like to be able to provide a pathway for students to go into this type of engineering, to be a, to be a smart grid technologist, or for folks who want to pursue a transfer degree and go on, that there's that pathway for them. And this supports our Birth to Career Collaborative. And below you'll see just our alignment with our strategic plan.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
staying.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't need a closed session. We have any board reports, discussion, or other business? We don't have any first readings. And then we have announcement of our next board meetings, except it looks like.
Madam Chair?
November, yes.
So under the board reports discussion and other business, I had a couple of items.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Make it quick.
Yes, ma'am. So I would like to request that at a future meeting that we tour the new greenhouse that's going up that we've talked about tonight. I know we have something on Saturday. I don't know what that time frame looks like for, the college being able to do that for us, but just at some future meeting is my
We
request.
could certainly walk over there on Saturday. It's mostly hoops right now.
Okay.
But it is open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even under construction, I think it would be interesting to see what's going up and be educated about that. Secondly, I just wanted to talk for a second about the statewide education, the statewide conversation that's going on right now, led by the Higher Education Department on alignment and reorganization of higher education in the state of New Mexico. So I think we may have other board members or President Grissom that can give a little report about the meetings that have gone on so far at the state level. I just want to voice my concern about conversations of creating one statewide system, because we are an independent community college. We are supported by the taxpayers of Santa Fe County. 36% of our funding comes from the state of New Mexico, and I think that we...
28. Down to
28. Sorry, thank you for that correction. 28% of our funding comes from the state of New Mexico. So it seems only right to me that our local taxpayers should be able to elect a board that governs the college that they have made the primary investment in for this community, and not have a statewide set of regents that are appointed by the governor that makes decisions on behalf of our community. So I feel really strongly about that, and I would like to advocate for that as this conversation moves forward.
And I would add to that those systems that have basically done that, the community colleges always get short shrift. So that's another reason for wanting to make sure that the community colleges are separate from the university systems.
I will add on to that by saying my experience with some of our two-year colleges in the state who are affiliated with our universities is that they see themselves as feeder schools to the universities, which is a wonderful thing, and we all want students to continue their higher education. But I think you limit yourself by only offering 2 years worth of academic credentials that move you on to the next. We all know we have students here who come here for a 2-year education or a certificate that advances their career and gives them career opportunities after 2 years of education with an associate's degree or a certificate. And I would hate to see that being lost so that everyone is just a feeder school to a 4-year degree.
Well, and you can add to that one of the issues with other systems like that is that many of the university policies, such as hiring, such as program development, is then becomes under the banner of the university rules. And for our community college faculty, that can be an issue. For our community college, well, all of our hiring process, but also for our program development, that can be an issue. So the liabilities, not legal liabilities, but the liabilities for the community colleges are substantial in terms of what the community college loses by coming under the umbrella of a university. And I think many of our colleges that are branch campuses experience that all the time. They experience the fact that they are brought before the legislature to talk about what money will go to the community colleges, but when the money gets allocated, it doesn't always get there.
Yeah, the committee I'm on has not met yet. We've just had one phone call.
As far as I know, none of the committees have met since that first meeting, which was back in July. There are some meetings planned, I believe, in October, including a governor's higher ed summit again, but we've not received any official notification.
We'll get that the day before.
The day before, yes.
But thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for the conversation.
Going to be an ongoing problem. Anybody else on board issues? Okay, so we are going to meet on Saturday at 9 o'clock and in closed session to be reviewing the interim president resumes that we have received.
Where are we meeting?
In the
Here.
President's conference room. We ought to talk about also the November meeting date.
Oh, yeah, so the November meeting date on the 29th?
Well, the November meeting date is a problem because the regular fourth Wednesday would be the day before Thanksgiving. So I don't think you want to meet that night.
College closed that day?
The college is closed the next day. We are open if you want to decide to meet that day. What we did this past year, because you don't have a meeting in December because it's during the time when the college is closed. Last year, we met the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, which this year would be November the 29th. I know some of you may have difficulties meeting that week or even the following week. You could think about meeting Wednesday, December 13th as your combo November-December board meeting.
Does December 13th work for everybody?
And this is the meeting that we normally do as the joint meeting with the foundation.
Mm-hmm. What's the problem with the 2 weeks before?
Well, I'm gone.
Oh, you're gone.
On November the 29th?
You're gone the week of the 27th and December 4th, correct?
Yeah.
So is the consensus that November 29th is the date we should meet?
You can meet, but I won't be here.
No. And the next week is the 13th?
And the next week would be the 6th, but Chair Siegel's not there that week either.
Okay.
The first time that she's here would be the 13th if everybody wanted to meet on the 13th.
Do we have any pending financial issues from, so we'll move from an October board meeting to, it would be about 6 weeks? From
Well, you know what you could think of doing is a meeting like on Monday instead of Wednesday of Thanksgiving week,
Yeah,
if people are going to be here.
the
You
20th.
can't really move to the week before because we have our Higher Learning Commission Strategy Forum, and Chair Siegel is going as a board representative to that. And so there's a number of people that have to go to that because that's part of our accreditation process. But
So
you could move it
21st
to the 20th or 21st, Monday or Tuesday, if you want to do that. I just don't think Wednesday's a good night, the night before Thanksgiving.
I'm going to be gone on the 20th, just FYI.
Who is?
I'm going to be in New York on the 20th. I'll be
We
back
can
on the
get somebody
21st.
covered. We can do succession planning for you.
So do you want to do the 20th or 21st?
What's
Everybody? Monday or
Fine with me.
Tuesday?
Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday's bad for me. I can do the 20th.
20th?
20 is good for me.
Okay, let's do that one.
Okay.
3 o'clock.
The 20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Are you guys definitely keeping the September date? Because I thought there had been.
Oh, yeah, wasn't there an issue about the September date?
Oh, let's see.
George, are you gone on the 27th?
Yes.
And Martha, you may not be here on the 27th.
I will not be here. I will not be available. I'll be here, but I
I'll
will.
be gone from the 23rd, 22nd of September until October 7th.
Gotta make sure we have a quorum.
Oh, boy.
I'll be here.
Well, okay, so on the 27th, Kathy, you're here?
I am.
I'm here, Jack is here. We may have to keep that one.
Mhm.
And who knows, we may be having to throw some special ones in,
Right.
depending on our
Yeah.
interim, our search. Well, let's just leave the 27th, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Hey, we're out of here.
Aye.
Right.
Was that was a vote?
That was a vote.